Thank you very much, guys. And I feel like this is starting to become a regular occurrence now, Perks, you and me on the couch. But, I mean, you're just winning every week, so that's how it happens. You're now locked into that top 4, of course, so in a very dominating position. And honestly, it doesn't look like any of these teams are challenging you. So what do you feel about, like, the middle of the pack right now? It doesn't seem like they're doing a lot.
I would not say that any team is not challenging us, because that's not true. I think Spice is a very good team. I believe they 2-0 Fnatic today, too. So I think Spice is like the second best team in the league right now. And then there is like this... Fnatic is like third best team, and then there's all these teams like Vitality, Unicorns, Schalke, and Giants. I don't know if I missed someone that are good and they're fighting for playoff spot, and HTK too. And I think those teams are like below the level of top 3 teams, but I think Fnatic and Spy can give us a run for the money.
That's actually a really interesting point and something I wanted to talk to you about. With Splice actually beating Fnatic right now, how do you think their chances are actually going into playoffs? Do you think they're going to hold second? Like, as the standings are now, do you think that's going to remain?
I think Splice is going to be... I mean, it's hard to say right now, but I think Splice is going to be top 2, yeah.
Top 2 Splice, very interesting.
Yeah.
So for G2 as well, of course, moving into playoffs now, are you now focusing on playoffs, or are you still looking at like the weeks ahead of you?
I mean, right now it's still my testing grounds. Like, I'm just strolling a bit here and there, testing some new picks. It's a regular season after all, so I can do that, you know. But when the time playoffs comes, so like 2 weeks before playoffs, when we prepare and start practicing hard and knowing what champs exactly are good and what is my best picks, how do we play, and then it's gonna be a lot smoother. Like, even now we have some clean games, but I think in playoffs we should be a lot smoother team too.
I also want to talk about kind of like the picks in that game as well, actually coming out from Unicorns, because they picked up, of course, the Urgot in game 1. So do you play in a different way when someone picks like an Urgot against you, just like a random crazy pick, or do you just play your style?
Well, I remember Meet saying in champs like, what the fuck, Urgot? And I was a bit surprised too, and then he got cheese level 1, of course, died. But I think we played the game equally, because everyone knows like the champ is cheese, but we know approximately what he does, and it's not that useful. So like when they picked Urgot, we said free win, and it was kind of a free win. So
yeah, I mean, yeah, you guys crushed them in that game, and of course, actually coming out of the second game now, you are player of the game, so congratulations, Perks.
Nice.
And yeah, how actually are you feeling about like your team in general? Do you feel like you were the one who definitely carried that game in that one?
No, I mean, for me, this team, the new lineup is a lot different than the old one, because it took me some time to adapt from different meta. Like last split, when I was me and Trick were like the sole carries, and then we had to carry the game, like be the damage dealers and stuff, and it was like different to play. And all that was in game was like around me, and I was supposed to carry and play aggressively. And the meta was different. I could play a lot more assassins, like Assassin, like Ari, LeBlanc, Lissandra, Ryze, whatever, something aggressive champs. But in this split, like the mid meta is a lot worse. So mid lane is a really useless role. This is just out of the heart, you know. Whenever you see a team losing, it's not because of the mid laner. It's never because of the mid laner. It's only because of the team. So this split is like Azir, Victor, Vladimir, as was saying before, like really boring champs that have that don't have high skill ceiling. You can see difference between the great player and a good one, but still the champs itself really easy to play, like Mazahar. You can't see any differences. So it was a lot, and the meta was different too. So it was hard for me to change from like playing aggressively to playing passively on mage champs. So that was like my problem. That it was really hard for me to adapt. But now that I adapted, I don't die anymore to mid roams and lane swaps and all this stuff that I was dying to in the early weeks. So I think I adapted now, and I would like the meta to change. But it's not a problem for our team, because we have 5 carry players. So everyone on the team can carry. If jungler is carry rolled, and if AD carry is carry rolled, then it's whatever. So
I mean, if it's any consolation, Perks, you make the champions very interesting to watch. But thank you very much for the interview, and congratulations again on player of the game. We're now going to send it over to the analyst desk to take a look at the game.
Thank you so much. Did you drop something again?
Keep dropping stuff today.
Great series by G2, 2-0, pretty clean win, and of course deserved player of the game there in Perks, and a lot of insight from him as well in terms of the development from G2, saying, well, you know, we can try a couple of things, and then 2 weeks before playoffs, which is actually now, is when we start cleaning things up to show up there.
Yeah, I mean, I get his point. I kind of agree with him. You've been sitting in first place basically since the split started. No one is going to challenge you enough to actually take you down 2 games in a row. They still haven't lost a series. They've gotten 2-0, 1-1 every single time. So I think trying out something in the first game and then for the second game, you can then like go back to comfort picks makes sense. I think the 2 weeks he's referring to is probably 2 weeks leading into playoffs, like with scrims, where obviously we know they're going to be practicing a lot.
And they also have a bye. So.
They have a bye right now, and we'll probably lock that in pretty much guaranteed tomorrow, meaning they have tons of time to prepare for a semi-final.
Yep, tons of time. To maybe clarify the 2 weeks of scrims that you're talking about, of course, after week 9, we have the promotion tournament for a week, and then we start the playoffs. And even then, if they have that bye, it's another week on top of it. So there's plenty of time for G2.
And week 9, the ULCS will be played on Saturday and Sunday, so a lot of info
even
in
more
there.
time.
Yay.
When does it start, Saturday, Sunday?
Noon, Central European time, which is 3 a.m. Pacific,
Yeah, so
I think.
wake up early.
Yeah,
stay
or check
up late.
LLesports.com because that has everything. For looking a bit more into this game, you want to look at a specific replay of a G2 ace.
I feel like it was hard finding replays for this game because G2 was honestly in control for almost all of it. This was like one of the few chances Unicorns had to try and get back in the game, and also just to show the power of Vladimir still diving in for AD carry. The problem is now, everyone from Unicorns are chasing that 1 kill, even though they actually didn't have to. They could have just sent in Vladimir only, and then a mega fed Cassidy shows up and just destroys your AD carry in like a second.
What's up with the Cassidans today? Because we've seen them before, but now they seem to be winning the games as well.
So Cassidin's always been in this spot where, you know, his laning phase is difficult to punish, always good at in the side lane, and the teams that are doing fairly well with it, G2 is kind of their crushing, and coincidentally it works well, but for Splice specifically, they're able to get Senkux through the game, get him out into a side lane while he's strong, and spend extra time. You can punish a Cassidin, no wave clear or low wave clear, you can gank him early game, but generally that's not how the flow of the game is going right now, so a lot of teams are getting away with this pick. Not a lot of bad matchups for him as well.
Yeah, basically it comes down, the way I look at it, to 2 things. One, matchups in the mid lane are pretty good for him. Like, you can pick him into Vladimir as an example, you can pick him into Azir, Victor. A lot of these control mages, they can't kill the Cassidin, they can push him into tower but not kill him. And actually when you do push the Cassidin into tower, unless you can chip the tower low enough to take it down, you actually just offer him free farm. Technically, he's very good at farming on the tower. Second is also because top lane is very much carries. So in order to set up 1-3-1 comps, you pick the Cassidin. Yes, he doesn't offer wave clear, but once you get to 2 items, he can beat almost everyone in a side lane. Has very long, very good mobility, obviously at the same time. So you have fantastic side lane setup. Fiora in one lane who can dash like every few seconds. Cassidin who can dash every few seconds. It's really hard to play against unless you can gank the Cassidin early and shut him down, and that's where teams right now are adapting a little bit slow to shutting down Cassidin, and that's why I feel like a lot of the top teams have a lot of success with Cassidin here in Europe.
Yeah, we'll take a bigger look at his win rate and pick rate here tonight in the post-game lobby after the last series on EOLCS 1. One quick thing maybe about the Unicorns of Love. I think someone said in the beginning of the show, well, maybe it's better for teams like this. If they're not able to 2-0 G2, then they absolutely need to get a point, or they can get an 0-2 because it doesn't matter at that point, but every point should matter.
Every point should matter. I don't think Unicorns will feel too hard done by a 2-0 here. It's against the league leaders. Unicorns were on an upswing, and I would consider them still. We'll have to watch their performance tomorrow. They tried something funky in game 1. It didn't work out. That's how it goes when you play a couple of different comps like that. They may look at that as a learning experience.
Yeah.
Game 2, I think, was a little bit bitter a pill to swallow, but at the same time, a lot to learn from a losing game like that against a team like G2.
Sure, they play Rocket tomorrow. Has to be a 2-0 if you're the Unicorns of Love. And then next week they have Splice and H2K. H2K just won 2-0 today, so pretty difficult last week for Unicorns, one of the toughest among all the teams in the middle of the pack. So for them, if they're not able to secure the points against Rocket, they might actually find themselves dropping auto players, which I think would be a shame because I really like what Unicorns have done during the split. Started out pretty poorly, improved a lot, very proactive team. So I actually want to see them make it into playoffs, but it's hard to then kick another team out because a lot of these teams have been fighting so closely between each other. It's hard to say who deserves it and who doesn't deserve it.
Well, another team that has been making their mark and said we deserve this playoff spot is Giants over on EOLCS 1 up versus OG, and they went 2-0 versus that team. Obviously, OG has been lackluster, but always seemed to get one game win, yet Giants were much stronger.
Yeah, it seems like Giants found the form of previous weeks. Obviously, last week, a really rough week for them. But again, this a little bit more focus around team fights slightly because Knight's now not on a side laner as he was in the last game. Hassan bringing out the Taric again, a new kind of pick for him. He likes the tanks a little bit more. But you can see Smitty J starts to take over. The same with Knight. Like, Knight just goes boom, straight into the fight, going for this proto belt. We've discussed it a little bit about whether we like it or dislike it, but he's making it work nonetheless. And Giants, same as game one, took a lead, pushed Origin all the way back into their base, and just their solo laners were unstoppable in this game.
Yeah, too bad for Origin there. They really need some points, but for Giants, a good mark on the playoffs.
Yeah,
chances.
I guess the only highlight for a good thing for Origin is the fact that Vitality lost as well.
Yeah.
And now Schalke Rocket is the next game. Like if you're Origin, you're hoping for a 1-1 technically, so none of them kind of moves away. Or maybe a Rocket victory actually would be great for them, because then Schalke is still down very close to Origin, and they can kind of climb above them, but then also need another step to get out of relegation.
I know that Origin discussed about hopes for Worlds, and certainly their hopes for Worlds aren't dead, but at the same time, I think they at least have a good platform to work towards Spring on if they can just maintain through. Realistically, Misfits are the one threat they need to avoid in promotion. If they can hold, they can maybe grow with Toaster a little bit, see where things fall in the off-season and prepare for Spring again. I don't see Origin being at Worlds in pretty much any result from this split.
No, and I feel like if you're Origin, I know obviously you want to go to Worlds. I mean, you have veterans who plays this game because they want to be one of the best or some of the best, and they want to compete.
The very best.
Yeah, you know, let's go full Pokemon there. But in my opinion, if you're Origin, Worlds should not be a goal at all. Rebuilding and refiguring out your infrastructure, your team, your organization should be the entire goal. So actually being able to just re-qualify for the LCS, let's say they get number 7 or they win in a promotion tournament and get back into the LCS, you have now multiple months doing Worlds and November, December, where you can actually kind of figure out what do we need to do with this team. And then I think you're going to be stronger than if you kind of limp your way in towards Worlds. But at the same time, if they are good enough to win the gauntlet, well, then they deserve it for sure.
Yeah.
And that would show that a lot of other teams in Europe maybe weren't as strong as we figured out or we expected coming into BU5. So obviously, if they do make it, they fully deserve it. But I think as Origin right now, they could actually use a break and kind of figure out what do we do next.
It's a very difficult one. On the side of Giants, though, they are now 3 points ahead of the next team that is following them. So the Unicorns of Love, they are solidly in 5th place, so we'll see what happens there. But in terms of playoffs, it's all up in the air. G2 obviously locked in, and then I think we can assume that Splice will also go there. H2K will get locked in, Fnatic will get locked in. That's kind of what's in our heads, but those other two?
Looks like Giants and Unicorns right now.
Because Vitality lost, and because Schalke has been looking very, very bad lately.
That's the thing, is like Schalke, I feel like they don't know really how to close games. So for me, like at least you see Giants, you see Unicorns closing games in a lot of scenarios. They're not perfect. There's still mistakes. But I feel like they're just that level ahead when it comes to actually finishing a game, whether it's 1-1 or 2-0.
All right, well, we'll see what happens. We're going to send it over to the arena. But before we join our brethren on EULCS 1, it's time for a much more unlikely Summoner's Rift reunion. Let's take a look.
You're trespassing.